Good morning. This is Jim Whitehead of All Power Group in Phoenix Animal. I want to thank you so much for being here. This is going to be a short paradox, and if you've watched any of my past videos, you'll find that I just love paradoxes. And the neat thing is most paradoxes can be of anything in the world that, as I've said with paradoxes, some things don't make sense, but it happens. So, one would say, well, it can't happen, it can't happen. So, anyway. So, what we're going to have today is the paradox of the humblebee. Now, yeah, you're probably saying to yourself, humblebee? I thought they were called bumblebee. Interestingly, I didn't make that up. It's and maybe it's a good description of our wonderful humblebees or bumblebees, because we know that generally all the food that we eat has been touched by a bumblebee. Now to the actual paradox. It's challenging to pinpoint a specific animal paradox from the 1800s that was widely recognized and discussed in the same way we might think of philosophical paradoxes. However, we have one based on common observations and scientific understanding, or lack thereof, of the era. I'm doing animals in different sequences related to animals in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. And I think bumblebees, humblebees fit into my description of an animal, basically. All right, what you're seeing is and you'll see as I describe, they find that when they look at a bee flying like this, a close-up, and it basically is, and the paradox is, this animal, insect, should not be able to fly. And we'll get a little bit into that. Here's a short animal paradox presented as it might have been observed or mused in the 1800s. So anyway, the paradox of the humblebee with its cumbersome body and delicate wings seems ill-suited for flight by all earthly measures. Yet it defies gravity with an energy that belies its form, fitting from flower to flower and tireless industry. How can a creature so seemingly incapable achieve such an aerial mastery? Now, if you see, and I never thought of it before, and that's why I love doing these, because, it looks okay logical to me, but what they're really saying is the way the body is and the size and smallness of the wings has it where, if again, in today's world, they said, okay, we've got to measure and see how big a bee would have to be, or how little a bee would have to be, or how big the wings would have to be to be able to fly. And as these bees go, and both in the past and present, their wings are very small, their bodies are pretty big, and it's not even a balanced body, if you know what I'm trying to say. They've got much more substance on the bottom, and where the wings are in the head, all much lighter. And yeah, I almost agree that it doesn't make any sense that they would be flying. There's a nice look up, directly looking at you. Anyway, explanation for the 1800s context. In the 1800s, the precise aerodynamic principles of insect flight were not fully understood. Early attempts to apply classical aerodynamic theory to bees often led to the erroneous conclusion they shouldn't be able to fly. This paradox arose from a gap in the scientific knowledge, making the bee's flight appear to defy logic to the casual observer or even some early scientists. Now, we all know, we've seen flying machines and people used to try to fly and with all different types of wings, because they tried to mimic insects, and they said, well, if I put just, with my size and weight, I put wings, I should be able to fly because they do. Well, as you know, in general, it didn't work very well in a lot of cases until the Wright brothers, and I think the early 1900s. So, they tried to mimic any of the animals that could fly or insects that could fly, and it just didn't translate into us being able to fly. It wasn't until the 20th century that more complex aerodynamic models, including concepts like leading edge vertices, truly explained bee flight. If you look at a wing on a plane, they have options of course, the length of the wing, the width of the wing, how, in the sense of what they call flaps, they can extend the wings. So we did a pretty good job when we really get down to being able to fly, with being able to dynamically change the configuration of the wing for the plane to meet all standards. Now, of course, a bee, those are their wings. They can't say, well, today I'm going to extend them more or whatever. That's what they are. So the interesting thing, and like with anything, you always want to make sure everybody has a home. So this last graphic is just showing this is a humblebee home, and it's pretty. Now, one point that we've been watching a movie called The Beekeeper. Try to watch it if you can. Anyway, this is a short one, and I know sometimes it's like, yeah, good, let's do short ones, Jim. But I want to thank you for being here today and learning a little bit about my loving paradoxes. And again, not necessarily thinking when you see a bumblebee, you'd say, wow, that bumblebee should not be able to fly. Never thought of it before. And where we are, I'm in a building that's in our backyard that we put in here, and I see bumblebees all the time going from flower to flower. They pollinate, and that's where most of our vegetables and things like that have it, where they live and they grow. But I never looked at them and said, they shouldn't be flying because they're kind of weird, unbalanced body. But they do, and they always have. So anyway, thank you very, very much. As usual, it's always appreciated, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.